It's very cool. It's so much fun to watch the young people of this church grow up. As Keaton was playing in the last service, I was remembering when he went with us on the mission trip to Tegucigalpa, Honduras. His mom and his grandma came too, and he did a good job, as most of the young people always do, of playing with the kids there from the dump and playing soccer with the kids and basketball and everything else. But it happened to be that we were there on April Fools, and Jackie's there, and you know Jackie, that's her favorite holiday of the year. My favorite holiday is today because we get the extra hour of sleep. Jackie's is April Fools, and so while everyone was gone, Jackie put a piranha in everyone's toilet, and then we wrote a note in Spanish to everyone saying that Inspector Cusel, so they should have got it right there, that Inspector Cusel was coming because this group was making too much noise and that they were going to be in big trouble with the police. Well, everyone got together. A lot of people bought it and they believed it, not noticing the Inspector Cusel giveaway. And we all got together to figure out what we're to do. And Jenny Johnson, I didn't know that she'd play a joke like this. I don't think she's here tonight, or today. But she said, you know, I was so upset when I saw this note that I called the American Embassy, and they're sending people over to investigate this whole situation. And my heart just stopped beating, and my blood pressure went up, and she really busted us on that. But you know, when we serve and we volunteer, it should be fun, and it is fun. And I want to thank you so much, the volunteers of the church and those that have dreamed together with us of trying to build the greatest caring network the world has ever seen. That was the dream that we had 31 years ago when Jackie and I moved here. And Jackie looks the same, but I look very different in those 31 years. And we didn't have any money. We didn't have any people. We did find a place to live. It was right next to Paul Cook's house, and his dad, Larry, gave us a very good rental fee and a great situation, and we held a lot of our meetings at that house starting out. And all we had was a dream. But this miracle kept taking place time and time again. People would step forward, the best and the brightest people you can possibly imagine, and be a part of this vision of showing the world a love that they can't resist, that they couldn't explain any other way than God invading our lives. And so from that little beginning, we went on to reach thousands there at the high school. We had 2,000 at Lake Washington High School, and we had 6,000 when we rented Maiden Bower. We bought this property. We built that first sanctuary. 3 dads, when I told them the story about a little girl whose mom had died, and she had asked if there could be a waterfall in the sanctuary, 3 dads built that waterfall, which is worth $250,000. And they worked on rainy days for at least a year because they believed the impossible, and the waterfall's flowing today. And then we had a vision of this Randy and Rod Recreation Center, which would reach out to the community. It's an incredible vision. And people gave sacrificially, and the community got behind it, and we were able to build this. And little did we know the way that it was work out with the banking crisis and everything, that we'd get into a really positive situation where we had an international school that would own it and run it during the week and lease it back to us for 35 years. And we could use it on weekends and play basketball here and have swim lessons on Friday and all the services and everything else, and build 5 nonprofit foundations. The first one was our Health Resource Center. Dr. Glenn Warner, famous oncologist, and Dr. Ray Vath and myself met together, and we said, let's form a nonprofit foundation. From that nonprofit foundation, so many good things have happened, not only supplying the clinic, the medical clinic down in Tegucigalpa, but the health fairs that they've had, the counseling. We've had the first depression support group of any church in America that was approved by the American Psychiatric Association. The National Association of Mental Illness to have support groups for people to treat them with dignity who had a family member who was wrestling with mental illness. to go on and on, all the different ministries. Dr. Jeff Dunn called me and said, remember, that's where the MS hub started, where the different hospitals all coordinated together to find a cause and cure for MS, which we are going to find, he assured me, in our lifetime. That was just one of the projects where people would take the ball and run with it. Everything from people that greet others, they're coming to church and they're nervous. People have reason to be nervous when they go to church. Never know what you're going to get involved in. But there's people out there to give you coffee and a handshake and a smile. And 80% of our congregation are involved in some kind of volunteer ministry, whether it's with the youth that went over to the Yakima Nation to help build houses over there, to the ladies that go over and feed the homeless at Camp Unity, to all the different projects that go on as we try and build the greatest caring network the world has ever seen. And we're just getting started. So look around this room. There's some world changers. There's people who are going to rock this world. Some of these young people are going to rock this world as we combine our efforts together in the greatest philanthropic organization you could possibly have. It's the church. We do it in the name of Jesus Christ, so that no one person gets the honor or the glory. It's Jesus Christ. And it reaches out to people because it doesn't make sense that people would love and give the way that they do. It's multi-generational. It's not targeted just to cool people. In fact, there's no cool people here today. No, I'm just teasing. There's 2 cool people. I'm not going to tell you which ones they are. But it's not targeted just to one generation. We think the grandpas and the grandmas. We think the single and the married. We think the young and the old. We think of all the different, the Meta-Church and all the different language groups that we've been able to reach out to at the Good News. Pastor Ben oversees the Meta-Church in our different congregations, and he went over to say hi to the Brazilian congregation last night. They're having a party, and he said, I didn't know anyone in the place, but everyone knew me. And they're growing all these different groups, and they're reaching people with the good news. And people can't believe there's a church where we have such differences, but we love one another because we have this mission to show the world a love that they can't resist. So thank you, volunteers. Thank you for the little bit that you do. But you do it out of love, don't you? Not out of because someone's compelling you to do it or making you to do it or blackmailing you to do it. Well, Jackie's in charge of Connection Sunday, and so she told me that I will be preaching on connections, and I do what Jackie says, if you haven't noticed. So if you have your Bibles, turn with me to the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 4. We're going to learn a little bit about connections from the way that Jesus connected. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. It's translation from the original versions, the earliest versions that we have. And it says in verse 18, one day as Jesus was walking along the shore beside the Sea of Galilee. When I say that phrase, I can just remember my dad preaching on this passage. I can hear his voice. I can hear my grandpa's voice. Most of you never heard my grandpa's voice. Just the joy of telling a story about Jesus, walking next to the blue Sea of Galilee. Do you think they could hear birds? Absolutely. Do you think there was the sound of babies and kids, laughter, and joy? Absolutely. It was life. Probably a fish would jump in the water. And if you're a fisherman, when a fish jumps, whether it's a carp or not, it just gets you excited. Jesus is walking along the Galilee, and he saw 2 brothers. Jesus always reached family groups. And we have families that have made up this church that, like when we got Barb Bewley, that meant we got her daughter and her son-in-law, and we're still reaching out to the rest of the Bewleys, right? And the Zappone family, they infiltrate all the ministries of the church. And I like to call Doug Sutton and his brother-in-law, Russ Smith, the Sons of Thunder, because Jesus had the Sons of Thunder. No, they don't have the same father, but they have thunder. And Doug is a loyal Husky, and Russ played for the Cougars, and when they get together, they have an argument every time, so we don't talk about that, but they're both CPAs, and they've taken us through difficult times. Jesus saw these two brothers. Simon, who would have guessed, became Peter, and Andrew, fishing with a net, for they were commercial fishermen. And Jesus called out to them, "Come, be my disciples. Be in a relationship with me. And I will show you how to fish for people." I'm sure that if they're commercial fishermen, it's because they love fishing. We've had commercial fishermen in our church, and I love fishing myself. I mean, one of my favorite pictures to post is of me catching a 60-pound salmon and holding it up. It was the biggest salmon caught at Sitka that year, and I thought I was going to win the pool, and I told all the kids, they memorized the Sermon on the Mount, I would take them out to dinner to the Space Needle because I was going to win the thousands of dollars for catching the biggest salmon, and someone in September caught a bigger one, so it came out of my pocket to take all the kids out that memorized the Sermon on the Mount, but it was worth it. These commercial fishermen, they probably love their jobs, right? Just like I love my job. But Jesus called them to a new job that he said is going to be more wild, nothing for wimps, more adventuresome. I want to make you fishers of men. Because at the heart and soul of all the problems that we have, all the violence, the school shootings, the trouble with immigration and all the things that take place and people are worried about, all the organized crime, all the drug problems, all the suicide rate that we have, all the homelessness, that we think we could do something about it. At the heart of all that is the heart of human beings, right? That need to be changed. Not those that are just the marginalized ones, but those that aren't marginalized and need to make a difference. So Jesus said, it must have been with a smile, "Come on, I'm going to make you fishers of men." And Jesus called out to them, "Come be my disciples, and I will show you how to fish for people." And they left their nets at once, amazing, and went with him. A little further up the shore, he saw two other brothers, James and John, sitting in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets. And he called them to come too. And they immediately followed him, leaving their boat and their father behind. I mean, it was a love affair. There was not any clarity to what Jesus was calling them to. When I asked Barb and Margie to be the director of our Christmas scene, we're going to have the greatest Christmas we've ever had this year. They said yes, and then when they met with Linda, they said they didn't know what they're getting themselves into, right? Because I didn't give them very much clarity. And in fact, I just told Barb and said, ask Margie, and you guys will make great directors. There wasn't any clarity. We want clarity in our lives. No, it was out of love. It was a relationship. One of the things I enjoyed doing is, I enjoy all my job, but one of the fun things is the surprise weddings. And I have a lot of surprise weddings. I could tell so many stories. One of them happened several years ago, was this couple in our church, and many of you know, the lady came down and with the illness, and she passed away, and boy, it wasn't too long, and her older husband came in with a beautiful older woman and said, "We are madly in love and we want to get married." And I said, "Well, we need to do premarital counseling because this is awful quick." And they said, "We're 80 years old. Can't you just do that in this one session? We're getting married quick. It's next week that we're getting married." And so I can see that they're in love, and so we had a premarital counseling, and before next week, their children started to call. All of their children were very successful, powerful people. One of the bride's sons was the head of the Tacoma City Council, and he called me, and a strong politician, and he said, "What's my mom getting into, and who's she marrying, and everything, and why so so quick. And another one was one of the founders of Microsoft, his son, and they called and said, what's my dad doing with this young lady? And I said, they're both 80 years old, you know. And so anyway, the kids had a lot of concern. We had the wedding at his home, which was on Lake Washington, on the dock. They got together, and everyone was a little bit skeptical because the kids are powerful, successful, and maybe a little bit controlling of their parents, like we get to be at times. And I said, you may kiss the bride, and she was wearing bright red lipstick, and she not only kissed him once, they smooched, and they smooched, and they smooched. And then from where I'm standing, I'm the only one seeing him. When they got through smooching, he was like this. And so I had him turn around and face the audience, and I said to the kids, how do you argue with that? They're in love, and they had a happy life together. This wasn't a matter of clarity. We would love to have clarity. As human beings, as Americans, we want clarity about everything, right? We get some clarity, and it doesn't mean that we don't have the right and the responsibility to try to bring as much clarity as we can and to learn as much as we can about every situation, but we don't get the clarity that we would like when we follow the causes that we know that we're committed to. When I asked Jackie to marry me on that romantic spot called Jump Off Joe in the Tri-Cities, the tallest hill, I don't know who named it that, Joe or not, but someone jumped off, and the wind was blowing so she couldn't get out of the car, and I got on one knee. I gave her this very expensive diamond ring that I'd saved for her that took every cent I had. It cost $353. And I asked her if she would marry me. There was no clarity about all the details of our life. We knew we had a calling, we had a plan, and she kept me on that straight and narrow, or I would have been Joe Montana today. But anyway, that's a side story. But I wouldn't be in the ministry if it wasn't for Jackie. We didn't have much clarity. We had trust. There was a man that turned 60 years old, and he was successful in his career. He retired. He had enough money to do anything he wanted to with the rest of his life. And so he really had this search to find out what he wanted for his second career. And he was so thorough and so successful that he actually traveled to India to stay with Mother Teresa to get her advice about what he would do with the rest of his life. So she was there ministering to the dying, and he just started helping and volunteering. And finally, Mother Teresa, the Nobel laureate, the famous saint that we had living amongst us, noticed this successful 60-year-old businessman, and she said, what do you want? And he said, well, I guess I want your prayers. And she said, what do you want me to pray for? And he didn't know. He said, I guess what I want is clarity. She said, no, I won't pray for that. That was the end of their conversation. And he said, what do you mean you won't pray for it? Am I such a bad person? I'm helping out here. She said, I've never had a clarity a day in my life. I'll pray for trust for you. We see this calling, and it's a matter not of complete clarity. Don't you wish that we had complete clarity in our lives? Don't you wish that you knew everything that was going to happen? Don't you wish you knew what the next winning lottery numbers are going to be? Don't you wish you knew what was going to happen in the world politics? Don't you wish you knew exactly what the day that you're going to die, and how you're going to die, and how your loved ones are going to die, and all the troubles that you're going to have? Don't you wish you had complete clarity about life? Maybe not. Maybe life was designed to be lived without some clarity and trust. You really can't live and love and laugh and deal with anxiety and tension and stress without the capacity to trust. You can't see it all. When I was a young man, I hiked through the Wallowa Mountains with my best friend, Rich Sanders. And it took us a few weeks. We used up all of our supplies. We ate a lot of fish. And on the other side of the 10,000-foot peak, and we're going to go across, were all our friends, including both of our girlfriends. And we were pushing it to make it there because we were very lonesome. But we ran out of food supplies, and we came in to the high country without having chance that evening to catch a fish or anything to have for dinner. And we looked in the bottom of our packs and the bottom of our pockets for what food we had for dinner, and we couldn't even see it as we set up our shelter. We pulled it all out and put it together, and finally we lit a candle, and there was beef jerky, but also there was our bait, because we love to fish, and every time we found a worm, we'd stick it in our pocket, and there were earthworms there. And then also another thing in the High Willow Mountains, the best bait are fish eyes. I don't know, you probably don't want to see it, but we'd keep the fish eyes. So there's jerky with fish eyes and earthworms, our last food. We were starving. So we blew out the candle and ate the meat. Sometimes you don't want to see it, right? And that's the way it is with life. Jesus doesn't give them a contract and say, you'll be a senior partner in Jesus Christ Incorporated. You'll have a controlling interest. You're the first people to join this company. He doesn't do that, does he? He doesn't tell them they're going to be martyrs. He doesn't tell them their personalities are going to have to change. They're going to have to be loving. They're going to have to be kind. He doesn't explain to them the grace that they're going to have to experience, the boldness that they're going to live with, because trusting God is not for wimps and wussies, is it? Trusting God takes boldness, and it takes the strength to be kind, the divine strength to forgive what's unforgivable, the courageous honesty to ask forgiveness when you need forgiveness so your heart can be pure. No, it's trust, not clarity, that we have when we volunteer, when we make contact. And I've asked God for 10 more years to try and build the greatest caring network the world has ever seen. Now, I want to live to be 100, but I'll bear the burden of leadership for 10 more years, and then I'll be like an assistant pastor and let someone else stress out and get older, and I'll get a toupee, and I'll look young. But I've asked God for 10 more years. In 10 more years, I hope there's no homeless around here. I hope we can make a difference with that. We should be able to do that. It's going to take government. It's going to take corporations, nonprofit organizations, and a church that really matters. We get relationships with people, not handouts. We find out if they need counseling, job interview skills, a referral network, a support and encouragement. I pray that the East Side doesn't have such a high suicide rate that we have. That there aren't 1,500 young people that are homeless on the East Side because of the breakdown of families and family relationships. That we can provide resources for that. That people can find Christ. I pray that we can make a difference for every orphan, even for those in our area. For those that are living and the parents are offering their homes as a place of refuge to them, that we can be an incredible support system. So we're going to have an Orphan Sunday and bring orphan outreach in, and Pastor Ray is going to teach us how we can do that effectively just for the orphans in our area, let alone the orphanages we want to build in Kenya and Haiti and all the other places where kids just live around the streets. I hope we can just try and build the greatest caring network. Now, I'm not asking you to do more than what you could do. I'm not asking you for your money, because I don't want anyone to give money that doesn't feel good about it. God will allow us to take care somehow. Some of us are going to give boldly, especially for this Christmas, because I'm asking God that we can renew our church and reach 50 families this Christmas, new families. We know how to do it. We have a veteran team that can pull together. Rex has given us a great plan, Serve Your City. What a great way to change the image that we had when we went into this huge challenge of building this building. A lot of people don't know that it all worked out. God had a plan. But I'm asking that there's some Peters and Johns and Andrews that want to fish for people. And that might be just once a month. It might be people like Bob Baird that end up building every time we have a manger scene like we're going to have, people like him are building it in the rain. if we all do a little together, just in this worship service, we can do a lot. We can greet more and more congregations. We can make sure our space is maximized, ministering to people like we did to the Egyptian Christians who built a huge building, and they're one of the fastest growing Egyptian Christian churches in the United States. And the Brazilians hopefully will do the same thing, and the Hispanic congregations, and the Korean congregation, all the other things, and we can all be one family. Only if God does something in our hearts, and it's not because we have such clarity, it's because we have such love, such loving trust. So if I had a way to end this service, I would wish that you could have lipstick marks all over your face and you could leave here like this. Maybe that'll be the sign of those who get lunch, a way to get lunch as a volunteer. But I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you've done. Not for me and not for this church, but for Jesus Christ, and because you've had a love that you can't resist. And we're going to have the young people of our church come up and sing a song for us before we close.